welcome to Chef Boy Are We Crazy. For years, members of the Arlington NPM chapter met on Shrove Tuesday at a restaurant, years ago Squire Rockwell's and most recently Brian's, for food and fun, no agenda, just for food and fun. We'd gather, eat, say good luck during Lent, see you after Easter. A couple of weeks ago, Tim Lewicki, who's our current chapter director, called. And he said, since we are unable to have our annual gathering on Shrove Tuesday afternoon, would I consider making a cooking video for Mardi Gras? Maybe something like a king cake. I laughed and immediately thought of my colleague Remi Bauer, who's a member of the Washington, D.C. NPM chapter. Remi is from New Orleans, and she's an amazing cook. She's actually cooked in my kitchen. I can attest to the quality of her food. And so we decided to do a video together. She's making jambalaya and shrimp creole, and it will follow this introduction. Our NPM National Convention will be held in New Orleans this July, and so it's not too soon for us to start enjoying this amazing cuisine. Mardi Gras actually begins on Feast of the Epiphany and ends on Shrove Tuesday. A couple of years ago, I invited some friends for Sunday supper, and one of them said, "Hey Rick, you know that's the Sunday before Ash Wednesday," and he declared it Mardi Gras Sunday. We had fun and tried to make it an annual tradition, although this year that will not happen. When he said that, I thought, uh-oh, I better change the menu, and so I immediately went to my good friend Amazon Prime, and everything you need for Mardi Gras is there. I hope that you will stay tuned and watch Remi's videos and plan to have some food and fun with your family during this Mardi Gras season. I will be back with some ideas for my favorite part of any meal, dessert. But first, here's Remi sharing her family's recipe for jambalaya and shrimp creole.
Happy Mardi Gras. Since we all can't be together this year, we thought it'd be fun to show you some quick New Orleans dishes to help you celebrate at home. I'm going to be cooking some jambalaya for you right now, and it's a Creole dish. And if you remember anything about your Louisiana history, you will know that Louisiana was owned by the French, then by the Spanish, and then by the French again. And so we have a cuisine known as Creole cuisine that is a combination of those cultures as well as a lot of African influences. So many of our dishes, shrimp creole, crawfish étouffée, gumbo, red beans, those all come from these groups that worked together. They were also very poor people, so very often the dishes were made with things that they had. Jambalaya is one of those. I'm going to be making shrimp and sausage jambalaya today, but jambalaya is usually made with two kinds of meat, but it's often just what you have. So sausage is almost always one of those. So it's sausage and chicken, ham cubes. My favorite is crawfish tails. Like I said, I have shrimp today. Sometimes you can even make it with ground meat. We start with the vegetables. We have one green pepper, one onion, and several stalks of celery, all chopped coarsely. And this is known as the Trinity. Most New Orleans dishes start with the Trinity. And we have a couple of cloves of garlic that are sliced there. We have about a pound of shrimp tails. You can use raw shrimp. I had some cooked shrimp, so I'm using that. I have about a pound of andouille sausage. Now, if you can't find andouille sausage, you can use smoked sausage, but andouille is fairly available these days. So if you can find that, it adds a nice flavor and a little bit of spice. And you need about 3 cups of raw cooked rice. When you cook it, it's about 9 cups of cooked rice. So you want to do that first. You might find some recipes that tell you to make the rice in the jambalaya. I find that that's kind of a mushy result, so that you want to cook the rice first and add it at the end. Also, I have a large can of diced tomatoes. Then your favorite Creole seasoning. My favorite is Tony Chachere's. There's also Zatarain's. A little bit of salt and pepper. If you can't find Creole seasoning, you can use some cayenne pepper and a couple of other spices, and it's easy to find a recipe for that. But the Creole seasoning's nice. And some oil. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in my pot here, and I want to put the vegetables in and saute them until they are soft for about 5 minutes. You still want them to be a little bit firm. You don't want them to be too mushy. So the vegetables have been sauteing for a little while now, and the onions are starting to caramelize. Let's go ahead and put in our sausage. And then we can put in our shrimp or our other meat, whatever other meat you've chosen to put in. And our garlic. And this would be a good time to add the spices as well. Now you want to make sure the sausage has salt in it and a bit of spice if you've used andouille. So you want to put a little bit less at first and then decide later if you want more. The tomatoes will also have salt in them. So you can just add as you go. And we'll let these cook down for a few minutes. So our meats have cooked down quite a bit, and you can see there's some wonderful juice in there. I should have said that sometimes if you want to avoid too much fat, you can cook the sausage in a different pan or in the microwave before adding it to the dish. This sausage didn't seem to be too fatty, and I thought that was fine. But if you're watching for your fat, that's one way to do that. So let's go ahead and add the tomatoes. I'm going to put a little black pepper in here right now. I didn't do that before. And we're going to let this cook down for at least 5 minutes or so. So our ingredients have been cooking down for about 8 to 10 minutes. And you can see that everything's cooking to a rolling boil. It's a good time right now to taste to make sure that you don't want to add any more spices to it. It's a good time to incorporate anything new before you add the rice. So if it tastes the way you think it should, then go ahead and add the rice. You want to make sure that the rice is, there's not too much rice in it. You want it to all be incorporated well, but you don't want it to be too dry. You want it to be moist without being runny. You can get a good look at it here. And the only thing left to do is enjoy. Since we can't be together with our friends to celebrate, we are sending out videos so that you can make some delicious food at home. And today we are making shrimp Creole. Now, Creole is a cuisine in New Orleans that combines the French, Spanish, and African influences. For the ingredients, we need 1 green pepper, 1 large onion, and about 3 stalks of celery, coarsely chopped. Now, these together are known as the Trinity, and many of our New Orleans dishes start with the Trinity. I've got about 2 chopped cloves of garlic, about 2 tablespoons of finely chopped parsley, about a pound and a half of raw shrimp tails peeled into vein, a cup of flour, a cup of oil, canola oil is good, cooked rice, some Creole seasoning. My favorite is Tony Chachere's. There's also Zatarain's. You need about 30-ounce can of the tomato sauce and a couple of cans of tomato paste. I also like to add some little shakes of some hot pepper sauce. Tabasco and Crystal are the most iconic from New Orleans. They both have a little different flavor, but you can just add a little bit there. Now, the flour and the oil are going to be for our roux. Now, if you've never made a roux or cooked with a roux, many of the New Orleans dishes do start with it, and it's a browning of the flour and oil together over a slow, medium heat until it's just about peanut butter colored. There are different colors of roux. You know, there's a lighter one, and for the shrimp creole, it's not as dark as roux can get. If you're making gumbo, you want your roux as dark as it can get. For those of you who have been doing French cooking and whatnot, sometimes people will say, well, why are you using oil instead of butter? Well, you want to use an oil that has a high smoke point. And when we talk about smoke point, that's when the oil begins to burn. So butter has a pretty low smoke point, and so you are in jeopardy of burning your roux. And if you've ever done that once, you won't do it again. So a lot of chefs now go to a more refined oil. And an oil such as extra virgin olive oil would not be good because it's not as refined. So for me, canola oil is very good with that. I also promised that Rick Gibala that I would talk to you about roux spoons. Now, you can use just about any spoon that you have, but in New Orleans, a lot of people, cooks, have their favorite spoon. This spoon was my mother's. She and my father were married in 1958, and it was hers then. And when I got married, she passed it on to me since I had emerged as the cook in the family. And this spoon used to be round, but you can see now that it is quite the shape of a pot. And it's from years and years of a right-handed cook stirring the pot. This one was my grandmother's. And I really like this one because of its long handle. But again, you can see that it has kind of a rough edge from having been used so many years. You need to have a heavy pot for this for making a roux. And that is non-negotiable. So if you don't have a Dutch oven type pot, you want to at least use a heavy pan for the first part of this so that you can make the roux in a heavy pan. And then you'll be able to transfer everything once you put the vegetables in, whatever, if you need to use a smaller pan after you do the vegetables, then you can put it into a larger pot for the rest of the ingredients. But it's mandatory to have a real heavy pot whenever you are making a roux. Let me go ahead and let's get started. So I have our oil heated here, and you want to keep it on a medium to medium-high heat, but you have to really watch the roux the entire time. It's one of those things that you can't multitask. You can't chop other ingredients. You have to have everything ready before you start this. Let's put the flour in a little bit at a time, making sure it's smooth. So when you stir the roux, it's more of a back and forth, constantly scraping the flour from the bottom of the pot so that it doesn't burn there. Now in New Orleans, kids learn how to cook as soon as they can reach the stove, if you are in a household that cooks a lot. And I sometimes wonder if it's because mom needed to do other things and somebody needed to be able to watch the roux. To get a good roux, the right color, it takes about 15 minutes or so of constant cooking and constant stirring. As I said, you want it to be about a peanut butter color. Now, if you are gluten sensitive, there are some recipes out there for gluten-free roux, so you can find those. And also, I wanted to mention some substitutions. If you have trouble with seafood, you might be able to try this dish with some pieces of raw chicken instead. Or if you are vegetarian, you can maybe try some pieces of your favorite vegetable. Now, there's nothing like shrimping, but this is such a wonderful, wonderful sauce that it can make just about any meal just taste delicious. I'm going to keep stirring the roux now for about 15 or 20 minutes, and let's see how that looks. You can see our roux is getting much darker now. And it's not as dark as you might do for a gumbo, but it is just the right color here for our shrimp creole. The vegetables that we put in will make it darker once their sugars interact with it. So we've added our trinity, and you have to continue to stir so that nothing sticks, and it should be very thick at this point. So just keep stirring it for a few minutes until the vegetables start to soften. You can see that our roux has gotten quite dark now, actually, and the vegetables have started to soften. So it's time to add our shrimp, our garlic, and some of our spices. You want about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of your Creole seasoning. If you don't have Creole seasoning, you can use some cayenne pepper, about half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper with some salt and pepper. You want to continue cooking this until the shrimp are pink. Now that our shrimp are getting nice and pink, it's time to add the tomato sauce and paste. You see it's quite thick, and so we have some hot water on standby. So you want to add water until it's about the thickness of a potato soup. You can see the beautiful color that the Creole is now, that the tomato sauce is a bit orangey. It's now time to add our parsley, and we can save a little for garnish in the end if we'd like as well. And then we're going to put our dish on low and let it simmer for about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So our shrimp creole has been cooking for about half an hour. I tasted it just a few minutes ago. I want to add a little bit of Tabasco, not too much. And the only thing left to do now is to serve it up. It's to be served over rice. I like to serve it in a bowl with rice on top. Add a little parsley for garnish if you like. And of course, you need to have your favorite beverage. Happy Mardi Gras, bon appetit, enjoy your shrimp creole.
Welcome back to Chef Boy Are We Crazy. When I plan a meal, I always decide what to make for dessert first. Cherry pie in February for President's Day. Of course, something chocolate for Valentine's Day. Pumpkin and apple desserts in the fall for Halloween and Thanksgiving. Christmas cookies, of course. But for Mardi Gras, Shrove Tuesday, there's nothing like king cake. My favorite, and beignets. Making a king cake from scratch can be quite labor intensive, but I discovered Mom Papa's king cake kit. It's like putting a puzzle together, and the whole family can participate. Everything you need is in this kit. It has a package of yeast. It has the dough mix. It has praline filling, the glaze mix, and the 3 necessary colored sugars, purple, green, and gold. Purple represents justice, green represents faith, and gold represents power. Now, when you mix the dough, you can use your stand mixer, or it comes with this plastic bag, and you can put the dough in here. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to mix the dough in the bag so the kids can all help. I'll tell you a secret. I used a stand mixer today. It took 3 minutes. So it's up to you if you want to include the family or not. But anyway, it's worth the effort because look at this beautiful cake, and hopefully your family will love it. It's got praline filling. It's really good, and I highly hope you'll make it. But when I went to New Orleans some years ago, I discovered Café du Monde. They only serve beignets and coffee. It was love at first bite. I know many of you who are watching your weight and you stay away from fried foods, but think about it. Every nationality has some form of fried foods. Italian have zeppoli, the Polish have punchki and kluszczyki, the Spanish have churros, and other nationalities have their fried dough too. It's not something you eat all the time, but save it for a special treat like Shrove Tuesday or Mardi Gras. So, there are many ways you can make beignets. In the link, there will be a recipe to make them from scratch. You make the dough the day before, keep it in your refrigerator, and fry them the next day. The easiest way to make beignets, a little cheating, but they're still good, is fried dough. You can use 2 biscuits, crescent rolls or biscuits. The crescent rolls, of course, are thinner. They fry out beautifully. You fry them till they're golden brown, sprinkled with powdered sugar. The biscuits are a little thicker. I usually cut them in half, but they're still good when they're hot right out of the fryer. But another way to make beignets is to use beignet mix. This is available at World Market, you can get it, or on Amazon Prime. This beignet mix is made at Café du Monde, so you know this is really good. And it's really not hard to do. You basically put 2 cups of the mix into your bowl and 7 ounces of water. That's it. Now you can use a wooden spoon, but hey, when you have all these kitchen tools, it makes life easier. You mix it until it forms a dough. You can see how hard this is, right? Stir down the bowl so that it forms a ball of dough. Starts to come together. Aha! It's like magic. Now you can do this with a wooden spoon, but hey, this is a lot easier. I'd say that's good. You get the dough on a floured surface. And you know what? The best tools in the kitchen are your hands, right? Just make sure they're clean. Spatula helps too. So we put the dough on a floured surface. You're going to need some flour so that it's not real sticky. And we're going to roll this out. You can see it doesn't have to rise. You just add water, mix, roll, and fry. Uh-oh. You have to roll the dough pretty thin, and you need a lot of flour, obviously, because it sticks. That looks good. Now you can use a pizza cutter or just a knife to make squares. I think I'll just use a knife today. Cut it in squares. and drop them into the fryer. And let's see what happens. The temperature should be about 375. That's what Cafe du Monde recommends. And they should cook about 2 to 3 minutes. They rise to the top. You'll know when they're done because they get golden brown. It's amazing what happens in the fryer. They kind of rise and they look really good. After about 2 minutes, you turn them over. You'll know when they're done by the color. They should be, as Remi would say, the color of peanut butter. These are a little lighter, but you get the idea. You can also do this, it's on the top of the stove. You can use a saucepan, put your oil in. You're going to need a thermometer to make sure the temperature is about 350 to 375. And when they're done, you drain them on paper towels to get the excess grease off. Put them on a pretty plate. Dust them with lots of powdered sugar. And you enjoy. So hopefully Remi and I have inspired you to celebrate Mardi Gras with your family. Pick a recipe or two, get your family together, get your beads on, and have some food and fun. Happy Mardi Gras.